Right then, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. Welcome back to Football Therapy with me, your host Jan, and welcome back to your latest episode of the existential nightmare that is being a Chelsea fan at the moment. That's right, gang, the direction of travel is turbulent and concerning, and none of us feel safe, or at least feel confident that we're moving in the right direction. Today, on this episode of Football Therapy, we will be going through a host of discussion points. The, of course, latest planned Anti-BlueCo protest that will be on the 18th of April at the Man United game. I do want to speak about transfer news. Lots of clubs interested in Chelsea Academy graduate and 19-year-old Joshua Champong, the defender who's excellent, who's rather frustratingly having to ride the bench to watch Wesley Fofana drop stinkers at the moment. Meanwhile, the boys at Football.London have spoken about the £277 million transfer splash, certain players that we bought in the summer. Who should stay, who should go? Spoiler, I don't necessarily agree with what those lads say in some of this. We can speak about managers. That's right, Liam Rosenior, who I do have a degree of sympathy for, getting it from all angles and every facet of the media at the moment. Should he stay or should he go? Well, the main Chelsea briefing is, nah, we're going to keep our guy. One moment, my phone's ringing. Sorry, I just had a phone call. It's a terribly stressful one, but that's just life at the moment. Yeah, I want to speak about managers as well. Liam Rosenior getting it from all over the gaff at the moment. Potential replacements. Of course, many of you will be shouting at your screens or podcast devices, Jan, what's the point? What's the point in getting a new manager while we have these owners and directors in situ? Well, I'd argue maybe there is a point, because as much as I like Liam Rosenior, I liked how he talked, I liked how he started, and I liked what he did with Joao Pedro, I've simply not liked what I've seen. And maybe some of it is out of his control. It might be squad building, it might be the fact how he's been thrown in at the deep end, it might be like a whole bunch of things, but maybe there's just an element now where we need a different voice. Maybe we'll speak about options. I think Xabi Alonso is definitely going to Liverpool. Felipe Luis, Ollie Glasner's being spoken about. I'm not sure how much that would excite me. Cesc Fabregas is meant to be a bit of an attractive option at the moment, but could you pry him out of Como? That's the question. That is the question, gang. Of course, he's not just the manager there who's doing amazingly well. He's also a part owner, I believe. But can you say no to the Chelsea job? But would you be an idiot to take the Chelsea job? Find out in today's episode of Football Therapy. Thanks for liking and subscribing on YouTube. And if you do want to support me in podcast format, just simply search Football Therapy Podcast on your podcast apps. And of course, I'm still accepting gratefully the 5-star reviews and follows on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Let's get into it then, shall we? Oh, just totally broke my transition there. Anyway, check this out. BBC Sports. So this is advertising the upcoming protest from both Chelsea and Strasbourg fans on the 18th of April for the Manchester United game at Stamford Bridge. I publicise and tell you about every single protest. I think it's important in case fans are interested in going. I think protesting is so important. The time fans stop protesting is when they just let clubs wash over them and don't do anything anymore. It's important to protest in all facets of life and voice your feelings. Now, even though personally I don't think an anti-BlueCo protest is just going to make them suddenly sell and everything's going to change, I think it could be a part of a longer term effort of just getting some sort of change. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't want to speak for all Chelsea fans, because that's not, no one should speak for other fans, do you know what I mean? But it does feel like the incompetence is there, Some people still believe in the elements of the project, and, I've been very vocal about how there's elements that I do like, incentivized contracts I do like. I do think part of the scouting is a lot better now in terms of we've signed players we wouldn't have done in the Abramovich era, like your Cole Palmers. We wouldn't have signed them off the Man City bench in the previous eras. We wouldn't have signed Estevao when he was 16 from Brazil. We probably wouldn't have signed Santos. And there's a few players like that I like, but that good is being far outweighed by the dysfunctional bad, just the systemic failure of look what's happening. The sort of poster boy of Enzo Fernández is kind of seemingly angling for a move to Real Madrid now. A massive contract at Chelsea. He's basically saying, bun your project in one or two ways. Give me loads of money to stay, or let me go to Real Madrid because you're not winning. And obviously the project represents low wage, base structure, and developing eventually to win. So before we'll speak about players a little bit more before we get into managers, let's have a look at this. So this is on courtoffside.com, and it's speaking about young Chelsea defender Joshua Champong, who should be playing a lot more recently, especially with the form of Fofana. It speaks about how multiple top clubs have been looking at Josh, including the likes of the illustrious Real Madrid. Maybe they'll try and get a double deal for Enzo Fernández and Josh Champong. Borussia Dortmund, which doesn't surprise me at all. They love a young English talent. Liverpool, doesn't surprise me at all. They went hard to try and sign Levi Colwill from us, actually, before he extended. Who's also, once he comes back from his ACL, Chelsea want to put him on a new deal. And Newcastle United, they're all monitoring the progress closely. They're impressed by how he plays in the multiple different positions. He's versatile. You know, he can play at centre-back, right-back. He's played at left central defensive midfield. He's tall, he's strong. He talks about how he moves well out in wide positions here as a defender. Though, personally, I want to see the right-sided centre-back play at right-sided centre-back, because you see Josh do his best when he bursts forward from the defensive central positions. And I think when he plays wider, it doesn't look as comfortable. Real Madrid and Liverpool are the main clubs monitoring him, apparently. He's got recognition from all the biggest clubs in Europe. Chelsea do consider him untouchable, quote. And then following that is a line that says this: potential offers in the region of 25 to 30 million euros, so not pounds, so let's just say 25 million pounds, could test Chelsea's resolve. We will spend 120 million on Delap, Gittens and Garnacho, but untouchable, super talent, prodigious talent in Champong. Oh, 25 million, off you go. Of course, it's a pure profit sale. How romantic. Yes. I mean, you cannot I mean, again, I'm pulling this off just a football news website, so don't take it as gospel, take it with a pinch of salt. But no, I know loads of clubs will be interested in Josh, but to be like those, oh, he's untouchable. Oh, sorry, 25 million pounds. You know, 25 million. Off you go then. You know, so yeah. I do want to speak about these recent signings next, so let's move on quickly. As I was going through Chelsea news aggregation sites, I came across this on football.london by Jake Stoats and Bobby Vincent. They speak about the new signings in the summer, yeah, and what they should do with what player. Now, it's a bit early to go with that. Of course, the season's not ended, but it's been a tough ride. I want to see what they say for certain players. Of course, there's already quotes from Chelsea head coach Liam Rosenior, more on the manager in a moment, that they are already talking about new signings. So let's go through it. Just go through the attackers or the summer signings, and we'll start with João Pedro. It should be pretty clear cut if you ask me as a start. Let's start with an easy one. João Pedro has been a fantastic signing for the Blues. I'm not sure anyone could disagree with that. It said Chelsea paid 60 million, but I believe it was 55 million for the former Brighton forward. It raised a few eyebrows, but 18 goals, 14 of them in the Premier League, none of which are penalties, gang, which, by the way, is already bang bang, because, you know, back in the day, if you got 14 goals in a season, non-penalty as a striker, and say scored 6 penalties, you got 20 Premier League goals, you're an elite striker for a top club, do you know what I mean? And his debut campaign at Stamford Bridge is good. Bobby's verdict is keep, and Jake's verdict is keep. Yeah, the only thing I'm concerned about with João Pedro now is I was reliably informed he's a streaky player before he came to Chelsea, and I hope he's not beginning the bad streak, though I'd love to give João Pedro the benefit of the doubt, because the whole team has caught the yips and is playing terribly. So, you know, A new voice in the dressing room? How does Cole Palmer and But you say a new voice in the dressing room, how do these players play? We had a new voice in the dressing room, and named Rosenior, and he made Joao Pedro play like a man possessed. You know? So he deserves credit for that. This is what I find fascinating. Jamie Gittens. Now, Jamie Gittens cost us a lot of money, gang. He cost us like £50 million. Yeah. It's been a tricky first campaign at Chelsea for Gittens. At the time of writing, the 21-year-old has made 27 appearances in all competitions, but has not featured since January the 31st due to a hamstring injury, which really needs to be highlighted here. Yeah? He hasn't really played for Rosenior, Gittens. Gittens was set to return a couple of weeks ago. He had a setback in his recovery. We've only seen glimpses of him. Of course, he scored the absolute worldie in the cup, didn't he? Or that amazing finish, like rolled his laces across it. Beauty. Now, they're both saying loan. I think that's mental. Why do you sign a £50 million player who doesn't really get a chance and then loan him? That's crazy. Especially, look, we're losing faith in these directors. I mean, they got a couple right, but we're losing faith in some of them, right? And some of their purchases. But we haven't really given Gittens a chance, man. I mean, come on. Do you know what I mean? He's apparently the guy they wanted. Like, Garnacho comes next. Gittens was the guy they chased for ages. Like, this is what we've profiled to be a really effective, tool in the Premier League. This is the guy. I said the guy, Garnacho's available for 40 million. That's probably a good deal. Let's just chuck him in. And they're both saying keep Garnacho and loan Gittens, which I think is crazy. I would keep Gittens and give him a chance to play. Yeah, give him a chance to play. And I mean, obviously Garnacho's done more for Chelsea, but I mean, Garnacho for me, he has contributed, but he is like a wild card off the bench. And at the moment, like I would rather a starting left winger, a brand new one, Gittens to like learn of them, and I suppose maybe keep wild card Garnacho. But they're both saying keep. I mean, I would sort of Garnacho at the moment. I would keep, sell, or I mean, he would never loan. Unless maybe like some reason there was like one of these weird scenarios. You know the way we've like loaned Jackson to Bayern Munich and we loaned Kepa to Real Madrid. Maybe there was like he would get a really high profile loan to a club challenging for a league and the Champions League. Garnacho would accept that, but I would probably keep or sell Garnacho. I wouldn't genuinely, as long as we get a starting new left winger. And yeah, keep your powder dry, gang. I know you might be thinking this is all moot point until we speak about the manager, but we are, and probably the ownership at the end. So yeah, they speak about Garnacho's been unfairly scrutinised, I'm seeing here, by one of the writers. The winger arrived at Man United with a reputation of something of a troublemaker, but his attitude has been exemplary. Ooh. An exemplary attitude, apparently. I mean, like, it's pretty much like Jadon Sancho. Jadon Sancho arrived at Chelsea. And they're like, troublemaker, wasn't allowed in the canteen. He was a really good citizen at Chelsea. Do you know what I mean? So, fine. If he's happy to like just keep his head down and not guaranteed starts. Mamadou Sarr's pretty straightforward. Keep and keep. I do think Mamadou Sarr is a good option. He was really good at Strasbourg. There's an idea that, when he gets more time, he'll be good. But I think we're all agreed at this point we need a new centre-back. We spoke about Pavlovic yesterday's content. If you're yet to watch or listen to that, I'd recommend you go and check that out. Because we do need that kind of like big boy defender at the back that just takes no prisoners. God, that would be nice. Do you know what I mean? Steva Willian, this is obviously a clear-cut keep from both of the Football.London writers. 18 years old. He was the only player that looked like he cared when he came off the bench in that absolute disaster away at the Hill Dickey the other day, which is very embarrassing for all involved. He looked like he was causing problems to Everton. He picked the ball up after the third goal went in out of our goal to be like, come on, let's go and play. Do you know what I mean? We want to see more of him, basically. If Mikel Arteta can rely on a 15, 16-year-old in Max Dowman in moments of need. I think we can rely on an 18-year-old to start at this point. That's genuinely how I feel. I know it's an injury situation. Now, Jarell Hatto, Dario Asugo. So, Dario Asugo, they both said loan, which is interesting. Which is really interesting, because he's supposed to be a backup to Moises Caicedo. But we've got Lavia, who's not going anywhere. We've got Santos, who I hope is not going anywhere. And we're probably going to buy like an Elliot Anderson or something. Dare I say, we might end up buying a Enzo Fernández replacement gang. Actually, as much as lots of Chelsea fans love Enzo, and he's been broadly very good for the last 18 months in terms of goal scoring, assisting, celebrating with the fans, kissing the badge and press points to his World Cup thing. As much as we all love that, he is ultimately sort of angling for a move at the moment. And if Chelsea get a lot of money for him, just say he goes, there might, not definitively saying, be a future where Chelsea sign a player that makes them function a little bit better in midfield, like an Anderson or whatever. I don't know. Jarell Hatto, everyone says keep. And Liam Delap, they both says sell. Now, bless Liam Delap, but I kind of agree. I do think there's a good striker in there. I do think there is a good striker in Liam Delap, but probably for a transitional team. And Chelsea, maybe if Ollie Glasner takes over Chelsea next season, he'll be like, oh yeah, keep Delap. He might even say, I'm going to bench João Pedro, and I'm going to play Delap and Nicholas Jackson as a front two to just run in behind. Do you know what I mean? And a 3-5-2. And we're going to, become like a solid top 6 side. Jesus, what's happened to us? Maybe that's a bit unfair to Glasner, but that wouldn't be for my taste. So let's speak about the manager then, gang. Alright, here we go. This is on Football 365. People are talking about Chelsea targeting John Terry as an interim fix for bigger picture, as apparently Rosenior is on borrowed time. Now, this is all over the news. The briefing has come out from Chelsea to your BBCs, your Telegraphs, your Athletics. Oh, we're going to stick with Rosenior to at least the summer. But Chelsea, Champions League and the FA Cup is in our hands now. There would have been a conversation before they sat Liam down and said, yeah, you're our boy. Where they went, should we change this? Because this is very S-word. And we are in free fall these last few games. Ever since that Jorgensen 3-1 in against PSG, the rest of that leg, the Newcastle game, the second PSG leg, the Everton game, it's been awful. So they can either go, right, well, this has been bad, really bad. And obviously you've got the examples of the Leeds and Burnley draws, bad. But then again, you look at, Man United are subject to draws, Liverpool are losing. No one's really that good this season. Even the, champions-elect Arsenal aren't that great. Everyone's kind of bad. It's not a good league this season. Maybe just ride it out. I don't know, but I reckon there would have been a conversation on Rosenior. So to play devil's advocate, we'll talk about managers now. We're seeing such things on TalkSport. Odds. They're talking about Felipe Luis. I read somewhere that Felipe Luis doesn't even have the correct European coaching badges to coach Chelsea at the moment, despite being the favourite should Rosenior leave. Of course, they did interview Felipe Luis. BlueCo did. Apparently it was for the Strasbourg job, but they've spoken to him. Oliver Glasner, I must say, that doesn't excite me at all. I think he's a really good coach. And, he won with Frankfurt. He won the FA Cup with Palace. For me, though, it's hardly getting Conte in for a back three manager who's just going to be like that kind of football. Or even Tuchel, for me, he's just, I don't think he's not even he's their yes man, do you know what I mean? Now, Xavi Hernandez would be a really interesting one, because I don't know if Xavi's a good coach. For me, he's a bit like Zidane, a Barcelona or Real Madrid legend that manages the club to a success. But I just don't know the barometer of how they are good as a coach. Now, we'll speak about Cesc Fabregas in a moment. De Zerbi, maybe. I think he's going to go to Tottenham if they don't get relegated. Marco Silva, I think, would be really underwhelming. Frank Lampard deserves to just be at Coventry for a while and win the championship, take them into the Prem, and just let him not be around Chelsea for a while. Unai Emery would be interesting, but he would never work under ownership. Fabian Herzler, he's Brighton. He's from Brighton. So, whatever. I do want to speak a little bit about Fabregas, but before that, Xabi Alonso. Xabi Alonso is being understandably so heavily linked to Liverpool, who are very bad at the moment under Arne Slot, and I think they'll probably sit with him to the end of the season purely because he won the title for them last campaign, and there's a lot of flux and change in the dressing room, and there's an element of goodwill there, but the whole Salah and Van Dijk drop off after massive contracts they'll be annoyed with him for that. They'll be it's out of his control, the Isak situation, and Ekitike's been good for him, but so I just don't think they'll sack Slot before the end of the season. But Xabi Alonso, I think, would be a really amazing coach for Chelsea. Because he'll work with young players like he did Leverkusen. He doesn't, he went to Real Madrid. It didn't work for them because of the egos and the individualism there. But I think he could, Chelsea, I know we're talking about how we've got a team of individuals at the moment. They don't have the egos of Real Madrid players, maybe Enzo Fernández, but do you know what I mean? They still are a team that want to work hard and play in a system, Xabi Alonso at Bayer Leverkusen had an invincible double. He will want a system of players. He can work with young players, and young players will respect him. I know Maresca and Rosenior had respectable playing careers, but this is, Xabi Alonso. Do you know what I mean? Caicedo and Enzo Fernández would be like, whoa, do you know what I mean? This guy would demand respect, and not only that, he has the coaching resume of what he did at Leverkusen. It was incredible, it was exemplary. I'm not saying he will come to Chelsea, but he would be the guy. I said I've been saying on the channel for a long time that if Chelsea could have a dream pick when he left Leverkusen before he went to Real Madrid, I was like, well, that Real Madrid hasn't tarnished his, legacy or appeal in the market. And obviously he's a Liverpool legend. If you said to him, who would you rather coach, Delap or Rob Sanchez or Alisson or Alexander Isak? I just feel because of the amount of money, and obviously he loves Florian Wirtz, so he's almost certainly going to go to Liverpool, especially because Vinny Kompany's doing so well at Bayern Munich. Of course, another one of his big three former clubs being Real Madrid, Liverpool, Bayern Munich. He'll go to Liverpool almost certainly, but Chelsea should have tried. Maybe they have tried, and he's been like, no, thank you. But he would be the perfect guy for me. Now, I do want to speak a little bit about Cesc as well. Cesc Fabregas, of course, took Como. I think he played for Como, and then sort of was an assistant coach, and then a coach. Took them into the Serie A. He's currently in the top 4 of Serie A, which is an amazing achievement. Really amazing achievement. So it's Inter, Milan, Napoli. Napoli, of course, Scudetto winners. Inter, Milan, top, and then Como. And he's 5 points behind third, and he's 3 points ahead of fifth, which is Juventus. So he's ahead of Juventus, Roma, Atalanta, Sarri's Lazio, who've been winning. Do you know what I mean? He's ahead of all these big clubs who have promoted Como. They're the form team in Serie A. They got 5 wins in a row. The only team in the Italian top flight to win 5 games in a row. And they've just come off a 5-0 win. A 5-0 win. So they are, the guys. Now, many Chelsea fans will be saying, Fabregas loves Chelsea. He loved his time at Chelsea. He won 2 Premier Leagues with us. He had a great time. He loved playing at Chelsea, basically. And although he's got a connection with Arsenal, I think Arsenal could bottle all 4 trophies and they wouldn't sack Arteta. So in terms of going to a former club, maybe lots of Chelsea fans would be like, get him to Chelsea. Do you know what I mean? The thing is, I just don't think he's going to leave Como, at least for another season, because he looks very much on for a fairy tale to get them into the Champions League next season. Of course, they're a well-funded project in a beautiful a beautiful place. And I think he's a part owner as well. So there's like investment there. It would be very, very hard. Look, if Chelsea finish in the Champions League as well, we say, look, you got a £200 million transfer budget. Say we just somehow finish in the Champions League. We got a £200 million transfer budget. Do you want to manage Chelsea in the Champions League next year? He might even still say no. Like, this is a fairy tale. I love this. But I understand why Chelsea fans are saying Fabregas. Do you know what I mean? Fabregas. Like, he is 6-1 on odds to become Chelsea's next manager. I'm not saying they're going to sack Rosenior. I really like Liam. I hope he turns it around. But I sort of said my piece, and I think we should have changed, because I think I said, even if it's just temporarily lost the dressing room, I think he's lost the dressing room. Maybe he gets it back after the international break. You know, God willing, inshallah. Do you know what I mean? He comes back from the international break and just somehow gets them all back in there, like, start winning again. And this wouldn't have been the weirdest thing in the world for Chelsea to just find a bit of form at the end of a campaign. It's stranger things have happened. Do you know what I mean? So fingers crossed that happens, but I doubt it. Now, of course, I just want to end speaking about the owners generally. There is this protest. Chelsea fans, lots of Chelsea fans want the owners out. Now, I don't think the owners are going to sell. I think it's important that Chelsea fans demonstrate their displeasure with what's going on. Don't give them an easy ride because it's been poor. Maybe they will sell, but but if some random bidder comes and says, I'll give you 3 billion, or no, let's say 3.5 billion for Chelsea to the Clearlake, to BlueCo generally. So his 3.5 billion, keep your Strasbourg, as much as Strasbourg fans would love that, go and buy a big Italian club, and although they'll want the Premier League, they won't want to let go of Chelsea, the real estate of SW6, what Chelsea represents in London. They won't want to do it. But let's just say they go and buy 2 other clubs in Europe and they carry on their project elsewhere. I don't know. They just won't want to give up Chelsea. I just can't see it happening. Like, I just can't see it. The only thing I can see is, and even that is hard, is someone like Boehly buying out Clearlake, which for me would be the lesser of 2 evils, taking control. I covered the takeover meticulously. I sort of gave Todd Boehly my blessing. I didn't know about Clearlake Capital. That came out in the freaking fine print afterwards. We didn't know who Bedad Iqbali was. And, soon his obsession with Brighton players and Brighton sporting directors to follow. We wanted Todd Boehly because he showed interest in Chelsea multiple times to buy us. He has successful, dominant, winning sports franchises. And, maybe he says the wrong thing sometimes. And yes, he's sort of swang his so-and-so around a little bit when he shouldn't have been sporting director. But if there was a reality where this is, well, you can't, the consortium isn't going to just give up Chelsea, but Clearlake can protect their investors and say, look, we're going to do it elsewhere. Boehly's found more money. I think a lot of Chelsea fans would take that option. I'm not suggesting that's even an option at the moment, or I did have a look. It was suggested in the briefing wars when the Civil War was more public. That's not been for a couple of years now, so there's nothing fresh on that, but that's just what I wanted to speak about. But gang, I feel like I've spoken about some stuff. I do still like talking about Chelsea in turbulent times. If you do enjoy listening to it, make sure you like and subscribe on the YouTube. Follow and 5-star on your podcast apps simply by searching Football Therapy Podcast. I do like telling you how well you've been helping me, because you guys are the best. I've got over 1,200 5-star ratings on Spotify. That genuinely is wicked. To have an average 5-star rating of 5, average rating of 5 at 1,200. Apple Podcasts, a little bit more modest, still on 59. So no one else is 5-starred on Apple Podcasts. So if you got an iPhone, do consider. But other than that, man, thank you as always for your continued support. I'll be back every single day, and I hope to see you back here very soon. Take care. Peace.